Hello everyone, we hope you're all doing well. Welcome to one more video presented to you by Insights IAS team as part of your InstaEthics GS4 initiative. In this video, we were asked by many of our students to give an approach on how to write about case study. I had plans of initially talking about case study once we did a reasonable amount of UPSC syllabus, but nevertheless, okay, let me just talk about it in a brief manner, and as and when we complete more and more part of your UPSC syllabus, we will get much better idea. Here, I'll be just giving you importance of it, some idea on how to think about it, and even write case study based answers on whatever topic we have discussed so far. This is going to be a very brief approach. All right. Much more on this we will be covering as and when we complete more and more videos as part of this initiative. Right. What is the core idea behind a case study? You all know in your ethics paper, GS4 ethics paper, there is two sections, section A and you have your section B as well. In section B, usually you will have 6 case studies and each of this case study will be for 20 marks. What are the various challenges that people face when writing this case study? As far as I've seen when I'm interacting with people, they don't know how to go about. They themselves are in a dilemma. When we talk about a case study, what they're trying to test, if you understand this, your preparation, whatever steps you take becomes a lot more easier. Whatever case study they give you, there will be a dilemma. There will be so many options. And it is not the options which is like good and bad that you have to choose between them. You will have to choose between options which are all negative in one way or the other. Options which will cause harm either to you or some people around you. Which option will you go for? How to apply whatever you have learned in your ethics syllabus to this case study. That is what most people still don't have a proper idea about. Whenever I ask them any ethics case study, they give me, sir, I will write stakeholder, I'll write facts of the case, I will identify some values. All these are outdated as of now if you ask me. The reason why I'm telling you this is if you look at the number of marks that people are scoring in ethics, the highest marks, it is constantly reducing. In the recent mains, many of the people struggled to score 100 also. Don't stick to any one approach that many people now have been acquainted with. Try to bring some of your own uniqueness, originality. Try to apply what you have studied in your ethics syllabus as part of your ethics syllabus to the case studies as well. That is very important, right? How to do that, I'll just tell you. So what does a case study test you on about? It tests you about dilemma. What is a dilemma? It is a situation in which a difficult choice has to be made between two or more alternatives, right? Especially ones that are equally undesirable. That is what I told you. You have to pick options and each of these options have some negative aspect or will create harm or are undesirable in one way or the other, and you have to choose between them. That is what a dilemma is all about. How to resolve this dilemma, that is what is the core concept why the UPSC is testing you on that. Because when you are an administrator, you will be working in those situations for which you might not have any proper standard operating procedure. You need to take your own decisions and then you have to ensure that this undesirability is reduced as much as possible, right? That is what they are looking forward in your answer. Right. Moving on. How to resolve this dilemma? What should be your approach? Be objective in resolving this dilemma. What is this objectiveness? Sometimes when I'm having discussions with students on ethics related questions or case studies, they tend to answer either knowingly or unknowingly in a very rather emotional manner. Such kind of emotions, even though I understand it, emotion should always be reasoned with. You should be rational in your approach. You should be logical in your approach. You should not give effect to too much of love You should not give effect to too much of anger. There should be a balance. Your answers, your thinking process should show that objectivity, should show that rationality, should show that balanced approach. That is what they're looking forward to when you're writing answers in case studies. All right. Apart from that, analyze PYQs. When I say analyze PYQs, it's not that you just go through the previous year questions from 2013, read them once, and that's about it. No, I don't want that. Group that case studies on the nature of the dilemma it creates. What is happening in these case studies? Honesty might be compromised in terms of overall welfare of the company that you're working for, or overall welfare of the district for which you are in charge of. Some case studies will be based on you showcasing courage. And showcasing that courage might bring you some personal harm. If you showcase courage, promotion might not be given to you. If you showcase courage, you might be thrown out of that job. Right? These are the subtext. These are the essential or essence of that particular case studies. And this essence remains the same. If you go through the case studies from 2013, group all these case studies based on this essence. If you do that, that would be perfect. After that, what is it that you have to do? Learn to look at the case studies through the prism of multiple ethical philosophies. This is what I want. Once you have grouped it, look at this case study from multiple ethical philosophies. Philosophy is something that we have not discussed about it in a depth manner till now, but nevertheless, we have come across virtue theory, we have discussed some aspect of utilitarianism, we have discussed about Kantism. These are all ethical philosophies only. So if you apply utilitarian philosophy, you will be ensuring the greatest happiness of the greatest number. That is good in a way, but it is not entirely good for all the people, right? That is where the major criticism is with regards to utilitarianism. We spoke about it. Virtue theory, right? So when you're looking at a case study and there are extreme options, showcasing too much of love or showcasing too much of anger, what does virtue theory says? You need to find that balance. So your virtue, your actions should also showcase that balance. You should apply these philosophies in your course of action. There are so many philosophies related to this. Gandhian philosophy. Mahatma Gandhi has given various philosophies on how to lead our life, both in public as well as private life. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar has told you. Many ideas of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar also give effect to ethical framework. We have our constitution. So all these philosophies should be kept in the back of your mind when you're writing an ethics case study or when you're reading an ethics case study in the first instance. When they're asking you what are the possible course of action, you can talk entirely from a materialistic perspective. You can talk about a philosophy called as hedonism. What is this hedonism? I'll tell you at a later point in time. You would have heard of Charvaka school of philosophy. What is it? I'll talk about it at a later point in time. Don't worry. So keeping in mind hedonism or Charvaka, you can give a possible course of action. Keeping in mind utilitarianism, you can give one more course of action. Keeping in mind Kantism, you can give one more course. Virtue theory, one more course of action. This is how it should go. And when you look at the case studies, this is what they're asking you. What are the possible course of action? Debate their pros and cons. Is it not? Right? Moving on. After doing this, be thorough with ethics related jargons or words. Some of the students that I met with, they say, sir, we have addressed all the questions, I've answered everything, they feel very happy. But once the ethics results are announced, the amount of marks that they are scoring might not be to that high level as they would have expected. The reason why it happens is they write answers for ethics from a very general studies, 1, 2, 3 perspective. That is not how it should be. Each and every statement that you write, that one statement that you write, if you can include some values and philosophies wherever possible. Just because I said there needs to be values, don't make up in your mind that every statement should have a value. The core of that statement should be based on some value or philosophy. If you do that, very good. That is what is required. You have to look at issues from a value-based perspective, from a ethical philosophy-based perspective. In the last video that I was discussing, I looked at the basic simple thing of violating the traffic rules from a value-based perspective. from an ethical perspective. That is what your answers should be made of. If the government comes up with any policy or with any program, when we talk about Beti Bachao Beti Padhao program, what is the ethical nature? How will you look at it from an ethics perspective? That is what is required. Beti Bachao Beti Padhao program is nothing but one of the ways on how the government is trying to persuade. And when you look at your ethics syllabus, persuasion is an important aspect of your UPSC syllabus, right? These are the things that you need to develop when you're reading ethics, when you're reading newspapers, when you're reading other aspects of your UPSC syllabus, and your answers should showcase such ethical frame of thinking. Along with that, substantiate your stand with a philosophy that upholds the best of all the values that are enshrined in the Constitution. I told you, you can quote n number of course of actions based on various philosophies that we will read about in the next few videos time. Which course of action will you go for? Go for that action which will ensure that the best of all the values in the Constitution, equality, liberty, fraternity, justice, all of them are upheld. Even when there are options which are undesirable in nature, go for that option which has least amount of harm. Okay, least harmful option, go for that. But even this least harmful option, it should be as ethical as possible, as legal as possible. And even when some harm is being created, make sure you suggest some ways to minimize this least amount of option as well. These are some of the things that I want you to keep in mind when you are grouping the case studies. When you're reading the case studies, this is what I want. As and when I discuss philosophies, I will be taking up case studies in particular, and I will be discussing what you need to do. I will just take one example of a case study and I'll tell you how to write an answer or how to think about it. Whatever we have discussed so far, let me just try to apply to a case study and then we will proceed, right? This case study I have taken from year 2016 GS4 ethics paper. Now, when you look at this case study, it appears a bit long. But when you look at the case studies in the last few years, it is becoming even more long, all right? Now, what is this case study? Let me just read it out very quickly. A fresh engineering graduate gets a prestigious chemical industry job. The salary is also good. However, after a few months, she accidentally discovers that highly toxic waste is being secretly discharged into a river nearby. This is causing health problems to the villages downstream who depend on the river for their water needs. She is perturbed and mentions, what does this perturbed mean? Worried. She is worried and mentions her concern to her colleagues who have been with the company for longer periods. They advise her to keep quiet, as anyone who mentions the topic is summarily dismissed. Anyone who speaks out on this issue, they're dismissed. And one thing that I want you to notice, this is something which her colleagues know, and this is something that people have spoken, and in written, whomsoever has spoken, they have been dismissed. She cannot risk losing her job as she is the sole breadwinner for her family and has to support her ailing parents and siblings. At first, she thinks that her seniors are keeping quiet. Why should we stick out her neck? But her conscience pricks her to do something to save the river and the people who depend on it. At heart, she feels that the advice of silence given by her friends is not correct, though she cannot give reasons for it. She thinks you are a wise person and seeks your advice. What arguments can you advance to show that keeping quiet is not morally right? What course of action would you advise her to adopt and why? Now, this is a very simple case study, and let me just be a bit more honest with you. This is not a hypothetical case study. This is something that you have read in your NCERT, Plachimada plant, where private industry led toxic waste into groundwater resources, and it had a negative impact on the people in the region. You have come across with various incidents where private industry let out certain toxic gases or toxic waste which impacted the ecosystem as well. Whatever case studies that you read, they're not completely out of the box thinking. What is happening in the society, they are applying that in your case studies. They're testing you how you will come across with a solution for that particular case study. In this case study, there is a person, a woman. She has acquired a job just after her graduation. It's a very good job, prestigious job, right? In our society, we tend to give value to the jobs that we do, the more is the worth of the job, the greater is the acceptance, all right, in our family circles and also in general society, friend circle and all those things, right? And she is coming from a poor family. She has parents who have disease. She has siblings, okay? So when that has happened, and she's also the sole breadwinner, so there is that responsibility, financial responsibility of her family on only her. At heart, she is a very good person. That is what the case study says. Why is it that she knows, she accidentally has discovered, accidentally? And what is that she has accidentally discovered? You know that the plant is letting out toxic waste which is hampering the river and which will have a disastrous health impact on the people of the region. She wants to talk about it, but she's afraid. She lacks that courage. Why is she afraid? She might be dismissed. When she confronted her colleagues have properly accepted the situation. Why have they accepted this situation? Because even they are fearful. That the reason for their fear is whomsoever has spoken about it in the past, they have been dismissed by the industry. They don't want to lose their job. They don't want the financial independence of their family to be affected because of this issue. She knows that staying silent is wrong. Staying silent, that is what her colleagues said. Stay silent, don't talk anything. She knows that staying silent is wrong. That is what her heart says. But she does not know why her heart is saying what it is saying. It could be due to multiple reasons. Her conscience knows what is instinctively right. No matter how she rationalizes. Here, I just want to explain the meaning of the word rationalize, and then I will proceed. What does rationalize mean? You know what you're doing is wrong. You have made a plan for the day that you will read so and so topics, but at the end of the day, you are not able to cover that. So what would you say? You should accept that responsibility. You should accept that you have done something wrong on that particular day because you have not been able to complete the targets, even though you had time. But you will try to rationalize. Today the weather was not good. The book was not written in a very simple manner. The video is very long. Rationalizing, right? You're finding excuses to put it in a much more simple and better manner. Rationalization. She had tried rationalizing her decision to stay quiet because when her seniors have kept quiet, why should she speak out? But she knows that rationalization is wrong. That is what her heart is saying. That is what her conscience is saying. She's good. Okay. Now she has come to you in this situation where she is facing this dilemma whether to talk or not talk. She knows that you are a wise person, and the question is whether you will tell her to talk or not talk. The first question is, how will you convince her? And when I say convince, it is basically nothing but persuasion. What is persuasion and everything, we will talk in the future classes. But when you're persuading someone to take a right action, you don't force it. You come up with logical arguments. Logical arguments that appeal to your mind and your heart as well. For example, I will just give one argument. She is from a lower class family in terms of economic status. She has parents who are ailing. She has siblings. Now, if she stays silent, the people in the region who might be from lower classes will be the one who will be affected the most. Many senior citizens in the region will be affected the most if she stays silent. Many young kids will have their future in danger if she stays silent. This is how you bring that arguments. You talk about officers who have shown courage even though it meant personal harm for them. I've given examples of many such officers. Ashok Khemka has always spoken against what irregularities he came across. That was one of the reasons why he was transferred so many number of times. But still, he is sticking to that principle. He is still showing that integrity. And that integrity is what is required on part of this woman in this case study. I just gave you 3 reasons, 3 arguments on how to convince and how to persuade her. You can give few more. That is what is expected from you in this first part. All right. What course of action here? Make sure that you write some examples from the lives of administrators, leaders as well, who have shown that moral courage, that is the important keyword. The second is, what course of action would you advise her to adopt and why? Here you have your virtue theory, here you have your utilitarian theory, you have your Kant theory, you have your constitutional Gandhian ideologies and so many philosophies. Whatever course of action you tell, you should justify it using this philosophy or using one philosophy or multiple philosophy. That is up to you. I'll just talk about what course of action she should take. Now she has accidentally discovered, she has found out that even her seniors know about it. She can't directly go and talk to the upper management of the industry. It is a very rashful thing to do, right? So when I was talking about in the last video about the dimensions of ethics, in one place I spoke about virtue theory, that was under normative ethics. In normative ethics, that too in virtue theory, what did Aristotle say? There should be a balance. You should not be having two extremes of virtue. You should not be too cowardly, you should not be too rash, you should be balanced. So you will collect evidence, you will try to convince your seniors, because in the past whomsoever has spoken, either individually or with few members, they might have been summarily dismissed. But if you go as a group, the upper management will also worry. Collect more and more evidence, try to convince the upper management that what they're doing is wrong. We need to take certain responsibilities for the people who have already fallen ill. If you don't do that, the whole company might suffer in the future. There might be criminal liability arising because of this. You can give some examples and try to convince them. This is how you should go about. If they are not convinced, what would you do? That is also something that you should plan in your course of action. Here I use the virtue theory in terms of balance. You can say utilitarian theory, the greatest happiness of the greatest number. You can also bring in the Kant theory, which says that even if you think something wrong, you're being immoral as per Kant. If you're staying silent, you're a passive, unethical person. You can't do that. You have to showcase in your actions, in your thinking process, that morality, and that is what you can also use as a justification as to why, right? It is nothing but justification. Gandhiji, at various points in time, he has stuck to honest principle, even though it was against his own good. In one of the videos, we spoke about the great trial of Mahatma Gandhiji in the aftermath of non-cooperation movement. Whatever course of action, my friends, you write, it should always be justified in this way. That is one of the major reasons why many people don't get more marks in ethics. They just write course of actions and that's about it. Don't do that. If you are interested with whatever questions we have discovered so far, try to write an answer. But by the time we complete around 50 to 60%, we will be capable enough to start answering case studies, and we will do that eventually. All right? Yes, what I have done, I've just given the approach over here. In the first step, I've just mentioned what people usually do. They just talk about, they understand. First, you need to understand the stakeholder, nothing wrong with that. You need to understand the facts of the case, values involved, or think about the context in which this case study might have been seemingly set in reality. This is what we did, is it not? Then what? Many people try to write introduction where they just speak about stakeholder, factors of the case, values involved. Nothing wrong with that. But it is becoming rather outdated because many people are talking about it. Some people I have seen, they just try to summarize the case study, which is, it's in itself very long, and their introduction is also long. Don't do that. You'll be wasting time. Okay? What is it that you need to do? Just focus on the crucial aspects of the case study and integrate that case study with what you have come across in life. It might be some of the industries which are in news for letting toxic waste, or in the past, if there are any examples. That would suffice. Focus in your introduction, only the crucial aspects, values, okay? You are addressing. What is the ethical dilemma in it? You should be addressing. If they're explicitly asking you for the stakeholders in the case, then you please go for that. Okay? Nothing wrong with that. Or else, try to avoid it. Okay? That's the thing. Moving on, sub-questions show that wider thinking capability. I told you, right? You have to look at the case study from various philosophical perspectives. Okay, you should try to find a balance between the most rational, ethical, and constitutional approach in your choices. Remember, whatever option you choose, it should be rational, ethical, and constitutional at the same time. You should find such an option. Always justify your choices adequately. You can quote some real life examples wherever necessary. I've given you an example of that in the last case study that we discussed. I just want to end this video with something that is quite close to me. We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence then is not an act but a habit. If we want to become good at something, just thinking about it will not make us good. It has to be a constant process. This process often will be a very boring process, your UPSC preparation. But if you make this a habit of thinking in such manner, practicing quite consistently, when it becomes a habit, a part of your personality, that is when you realize excellence. I hope some of the students who have gotten in touch with me have shown that they're quite consistent with the videos, the answers that they're writing. Whomsoever is watching, my request to them is, if you're planning to be successful, try to be consistent, understand things in the way we are trying to teach you. You can improve on it further, nothing wrong with that. And more importantly, we want you to practice. There are so many programs available to you in the market. Some are free, some are paid. From Insights, we are providing you with so many free initiatives. There is Ethics 75 Days Plan. We are uploading questions on a daily basis. There will be case studies as well. Attempt them. Post answers on the website and you will receive evaluation from your fellow aspirants who are preparing for it. Sometimes even Insights looks at those answers and gives you evaluation as well. Right? Make this as a habit. Excellence, that should become a habit. Right? So I want to end this discussion on this note. I hope this was useful to you. Thank you.